The set of America Speaks Tonight, a top-rated evening show on the liberal-leaning Unity News network, was buzzing with energy. The lights shone brightly, the producers whispered through headsets, and the makeup team gave final touches to the host, Cara Whitman, known across the country for her fiery interviews with conservatives and her unapologetically progressive takes. Tonight's guest, however, was different. It wasn't a politician, a senator, or even a business mogul. It was Usha Vance, the wife of Vice President JD Vance, and a woman the American public had only seen glimpses of during campaign rallies or holiday photo ops. Quiet, poised, elegant, and fiercely intelligent, Usha had mostly stayed out of the political spotlight, continuing her legal work and family life quietly while her husband stood beside President Donald Trump in the second term of his presidency. Her appearance on the show tonight surprised many. Cara was infamous for her ambush tactics, and conservative guests often left the studio rattled. Twitter had exploded with speculation. Usha Vance? On Cara's show? That's bold. She's not a politician. Why would she go? But Usha had her reasons. Ever since JD Vance became vice president, media attacks on their family had increased, especially toward Usha, a woman of Indian origin married into a political dynasty seen as unapologetically American nationalist. Many left-leaning pundits accused her of enabling white supremacy, a charge that deeply offended not just her, but millions of Americans who saw the accusation as both racially divisive and intellectually lazy. The moment came. Cara introduced her with a sly smile. Tonight, she began, we have someone very special. A woman many have called mysterious, silent, and even complicit. But tonight, we're going to hear from her directly. Please welcome Usha Vance. Usha walked onto the stage with grace, dressed in a simple navy blue dress, her hair tied neatly, her eyes calm but piercing. She greeted Cara with a respectful handshake and a polite smile, sitting opposite her in the hot seat. From the start, Cara tried to set the tone. So, Mrs. Vance, can I call you Usha? You've been labeled many things. Intelligent, successful, but also, let's be honest, problematic. You're married to a man who stands beside Donald Trump. How does a woman of color reconcile that? Usha blinked once, then smiled politely. Cara, I think the real question is how do you reconcile reducing people like me to the color of our skin while claiming to champion diversity? The audience stirred. Cara gave a short laugh, trying to recover. Well, I mean, surely you know how the optics look. You, the daughter of Indian immigrants, standing next to policies that have been labeled racist, xenophobic. Usha cut in, not with anger, but clarity. Do you want to know what my parents taught me, Cara? That in America, you don't have to think or vote based on your ethnicity. They came here for freedom, not just the freedom to live, but to think. To choose. My choice to stand beside JD isn't about optics. It's about values. Family. Country. Accountability. The studio fell unusually quiet. The camera zoomed in slightly. Cara's smile had tightened, her eyes scanning her cue cards. Usha continued, gently but firmly. I'm not a checkbox. I'm not your gotcha token of contradiction. I'm an American. And I won't apologize for refusing to live in the ideological box that you or anyone else tries to put me in. It wasn't shouting. It wasn't bombastic. But it hit harder than any viral soundbite. Within minutes, hashtags began trending. Hashtag Usha Vance Unleashed. Hashtag think for yourself. Hashtag not your token. And the show had barely just begun. Cara Whitman adjusted in her seat, her usual air of confidence briefly shaken. But she wasn't about to let Usha Vance walk away with the upper hand. Her next question was clearly designed to regain control. Okay, Cara said, her voice now edged with a hint of sarcasm, but let's get real, Usha. The administration your husband is part of has pushed immigration policies that many believe disproportionately harm minorities. As an immigrant's daughter, how can you, in good conscience, support that? Usha gave her a long, thoughtful look. The kind of look that made the room slow down, even the cameras zooming in involuntarily as if they too sensed something big was coming. Cara, let me be very clear. My parents followed the rules. They respected the laws of this country. And like millions of others, they worked hard, waited in line, sacrificed everything they had for a better future. She leaned forward just slightly. What insults their journey and the journey of legal immigrants all over this nation is the idea that borders don't matter. That enforcement is racist. That law and order is optional, depending on feelings. That's not compassion, Cara. That's chaos. That's disrespecting every family that played by the rules. The audience murmured, some in surprise, others in agreement. On Twitter, her words were already going viral. This is fire. She's articulate and unshakable. At Midwest Mama. Can we get Usha on the 2028 ticket? At Texas Vet 77. She's speaking for real immigrants, not the media's narrative. At Think for USA. Kara, growing visibly tense, shifted tactics. But your husband, Vice President Vance, has called into question the integrity of certain journalists, activists, and even government agencies. Don't you think that's dangerous rhetoric? Usha tilted her head slightly, considering. Is it dangerous to question power, Kara? Or is it dangerous not to? Kara blinked, momentarily thrown off. Usha pressed on. The people you're calling out, journalists, activists, they have platforms. They shape narratives. And yet, when ordinary Americans question them, they're branded as extremists or threats to democracy. She didn't raise her voice, but every word carried weight. You talk about dangerous rhetoric while your own network labeled concerned parents at school board meetings as radicalized. You promoted stories that were later debunked, but never apologized for them. So, Kara, tell me who's really playing with fire. Even the camera crew held their breath. Kara took a deep sip of her water, clearly trying to regain control. But it was too late. The momentum had shifted. Usha wasn't just defending herself or her husband, she was dismantling an entire media framework. A producer behind the scenes gestured frantically to wrap up the segment early, but the director shook his head. This was gold: conflict, surprise, and a guest who was winning over the very audience Kara thought she had in her pocket. Suddenly, Usha turned directly toward the camera. It was unplanned, unrehearsed, pure instinct. To every young woman watching, especially those who look like me or come from immigrant families, don't let anyone, left, right, media, politician, tell you what you should think because of how you look or where your parents came from. Think for yourself. Love your country. And never, ever apologize for your values. It was the kind of moment political consultants couldn't manufacture. Genuine, grounded, goosebump-inducing. In the control room, a stunned silence. In the studio, even some of Kara's staff started clapping. But the real storm was about to begin. On social media, in op-eds, and in the homes of millions of Americans who had just seen a new kind of voice emerge. One that didn't shout, didn't whine, didn't flinch, and didn't back down. Within 10 minutes of the segment ending, Usha Vance was the top trending topic on X, formerly Twitter, Truth Social, and even TikTok. Clips of her calmly dismantling Kara Whitman's narrative flooded the internet. One video posted by a high school civics teacher in Indiana simply captioned "Truth, Grace, Power" crossed 2 million views in under an hour. Meanwhile, Kara sat in her green room, fuming. She wasn't supposed to win, Greg, she snapped at her producer. She's not even in politics. She's a legal scholar. Yale Law, remember? Greg muttered under his breath, scrolling through their audience feedback. The numbers were in. Viewership had spiked 38% during the segment. Audience sentiment leaned heavily positive, not for Kara. Even their liberal-leaning viewers were tweeting things like, Usha Vance just gave the best 5 minutes of political TV I've seen in years. I disagree with her husband, but she made more sense than half the Senate. If this is the future of conservatism, we're in trouble. But the real aftershock came the next morning. On the White House lawn, Vice President JD Vance was stopped by reporters. Mr. Vice President, did you see your wife's interview last night? One shouted. JD, never one to shy from a camera, laughed and said, I saw it. America saw it. And I'll just say this, she doesn't need me to fight her battles. She's always been the smartest person in the room. Over on Capitol Hill, Democrats were confused. Some whispered that Kara's ambush attempt had backfired spectacularly. Others worried that Usha might now become a political force in her own right. Meanwhile, inside their Ohio home, Usha was simply making breakfast for her 3 kids and checking the dishwasher. Her phone buzzed constantly. Calls from conservative pundits, liberal columnists, podcast invitations, political fundraisers, even fashion magazines. Vogue wants to do a feature, JD said, holding up his phone, grinning. Not interested, Usha replied, flipping a pancake. I have real work to do. Our kids' science fair is tomorrow and I still need to finish reading that asylum reform case. JD smiled. This was the woman he married, brilliant, unbothered by fame, grounded in values and laser-focused on substance over spotlight. But America wasn't going to let her fade into the background now. The buzz only grew. Within 2 days, Usha Vance was invited to appear on 60 Minutes, The View, Ben Shapiro's show, and CNN's Morning Roundtable, all wanting to tap into the phenomenon. The New York Times ran a front-page piece titled, The Usha Effect, When Poise Silences Politics. At a D.C. gala later that week, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer pulled JD aside and, half-jokingly, said, "Your wife might be more dangerous than you are, JD." JD just laughed. "Don't I know it?" But not everyone was amused. Cara Whitman was under fire from both ends of the spectrum. Progressives accusing her of mishandling the interview, centrists mocking her for getting destroyed on her own turf, and executives at her network questioning her instincts. The liberal narrative had cracked, and Usha Vance had done it not by attacking or ranting, but by simply refusing to play their game. As Sunday morning shows rolled in, panels were split. Was it a moment or a movement? Could Usha Vance reshape the political conversation? Would she ever consider public office herself? One thing was clear. The American people had just discovered a new kind of voice. One that didn't scream or insult. One that didn't weaponize identity or victimhood. One that simply spoke truth with grace. And the country was listening. By Friday evening, the buzz had reached an unprecedented level. Republican strategists who had long struggled to connect with suburban moms and moderate independents began seeing a shift in their data models. Something was happening. Not just a viral moment, but a cultural reaction. Usha isn't just JD's wife anymore, said one analyst on Fox News. She's the most effective communicator conservatives have right now without even holding office. In Iowa, a mother of two posted a now viral TikTok from her minivan. "I didn't vote for JD Vance. I've never even paid attention to his wife, but I just watched that interview and wow. That woman speaks for me." Meanwhile, the White House press corps asked Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt about Usha Vance's comments. Caroline, sharp as ever, smiled and said, "Mrs. Vance showed what it means to lead with clarity and composure. She reminded us that this administration isn't just about politics, it's about people who love this country and aren't afraid to say hard truths." Behind closed doors, liberal think tanks went into damage control mode. "She's undercutting our entire messaging," one DNC consultant ranted. A woman of color supporting strong borders, calling out media bias, and standing firm on family values. This isn't in the playbook. Even the hosts of The View argued on air about whether Usha Vance deserved respect or condemnation. "She's dangerous," said Joy Behar. "She makes regressive views sound palatable. Or maybe she's just well-spoken and believes in different values," countered Alyssa Farah Griffin. Isn't that what dialogue is about? By now, political memes were flooding the internet. Blue Square, the only woman who made MSNBC blush, Usha Vance. Red Square, future First Lady or future Senator? United States, she didn't raise her voice. She raised the bar. And then came the bombshell op-ed in the Wall Street Journal written by none other than Usha herself. "I am not your box." By Usha Vance. In it, she wrote, "I am a mother. I am a lawyer. I am the daughter of Indian immigrants. And I am proud to be married to the Vice President of the United States. But none of those labels define my thoughts. I reject the idea that my skin color, my gender, or my husband's job dictate how I should think or speak. We live in a time where silence is rewarded if it aligns with the narrative. But I won't be silent. Not when the media manipulates. Not when our kids are taught to fear who they are. Not when faith, family, and freedom are treated as punchlines. This country gave my family a future. I intend to honor it with my voice." The article hit a nerve. Conservative Americans shared it in the millions. Even a handful of traditionally liberal voices called it powerful, thoughtful, and impossible to ignore. Then came the rumors. Is she planning to run for office? Could she be the keynote speaker at the RNC? Has America found its next star? But Usha stayed quiet. She returned to her kids, her research, and her daily life, smiling politely when reporters chased her at the grocery store. Still, she knew what was coming. This moment wasn't fading. It was growing. And then, 3 days later, she received a call that changed everything. "Mrs. Vance? The president would like to speak with you. Please hold." "Hello, Usha." The voice on the line was unmistakable. President Donald J. Trump, in his usual direct tone, got straight to the point. "You blew the doors off that liberal hack set," he said with a chuckle. "America loved it. I loved it. More importantly, Melania loved it." Usha, composed as ever, replied warmly, "Thank you, Mr. President. I was just speaking the truth." "That's exactly what we need right now," Trump responded. "People are tired of the noise. You gave them clarity. You didn't just talk, you connected. It's rare. And it's powerful." Then came the offer. How would you feel about giving the keynote at the Republican National Convention this summer? You won't just be speaking to the party. You'll be speaking to the future of this country. Usha's breath caught for a second, not out of fear, but gravity. She glanced over at her kids, playing with Lego on the carpet. JD was outside grilling, unaware that history was unfolding in their living room. Usha didn't need the spotlight. She had never chased fame or political power, but the opportunity to speak directly to millions of Americans. At a time when values were crumbling, families felt unheard, and faith was mocked, felt like a responsibility she couldn't ignore. She told the president she'd think about it. He respected that. He knew Usha wasn't the type to say yes for the cameras. That night, she sat on the porch with JD. Fireflies blinked in the garden. A warm Ohio breeze rustled the trees. If you do this, JD said, you won't just be the vice president's wife anymore. You'll be a lightning rod for praise and criticism. Are you ready for that? She nodded slowly. If I can help this country find its voice again, it's worth it. August, Milwaukee, Republican National Convention. The lights dimmed. The arena fell silent. Then the spotlight hit the stage, and out walked Usha Vance, in a navy blue dress, hair pinned back, no teleprompter in front of her. Just an old-school mic and a message burning in her heart. The crowd rose before she even spoke a word. And when she did, it wasn't political. It was personal. It was America. I was told I should stay quiet. That as an immigrant's daughter, a woman of color, a mom, and the wife of a conservative vice president, I should just smile and nod while others speak for me. But America doesn't need more echo chambers. It needs truth tellers. It needs bridge builders. It needs voices that care more about the future of our children than the applause of our party. She told stories of her parents working 2 jobs to make ends meet, of the faith that carried her through law school, of watching her husband rise, but always knowing that her voice mattered just as much. She challenged both sides. To my friends on the left, stop assuming every brown face shares your script. To my friends on the right, lift up those who challenge, not just cheerlead. And to all Americans watching, black, white, brown, liberal, conservative, your voice matters. Your values matter. Don't let anyone shame you into silence. The crowd was thunderous. Some wept. Others chanted her name. In that moment, it wasn't about JD. It wasn't about the GOP. It wasn't about sound bites. It was about something much bigger. A new era of American courage. Of respectful defiance. Of calm, clear conviction. And leading the charge? A soft-spoken, steel-willed woman from Ohio, Usha Vance, who shut down a liberal TV host not with rage, but with reason, and in doing so, stunned a nation into listening again.